Hi, I'm Tony Edwards, and I've always considered myself to be a skeptic. And I think this is the main reason that I've never felt myself drawn to any particular religion or spiritual belief. And this is not to say that I haven't wondered about the existence of a higher power, something that's part of me and yet more than I am. But the stories, the miracles, the redemption that lies somewhere in the future, it just doesn't make sense. So this is the story of how I went from then to now. In 2007, I was living in my hometown of Los Angeles, California. I had worked as an actor off and on for more than 30 years. I was also growing as a photographer, documenting electronic music events that my friends in the local Burning Man community put on. A friend suggested that I read a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. At that time, I had a day job as well. My work required me to drive all over Southern California, so I found myself listening to the audiobook many times. The thing that struck me then, and that stays with me today, was that what Eckhart Tolle was saying just made sense. It is, for the most part, logical. There's very little faith required to understand the main principles that Tolle was espousing. Thoughts are not real. You cannot see, hear, touch, taste, or smell a thought. Past and future are not real because they are thoughts. Consequently, the present moment is the only thing that's real. You know this too. You know that this is real because you are experiencing it right now. You don't need anyone to tell you that because you are aware of this moment. You're aware of everything your body can sense, and you are also aware of your thoughts. As well as I can know anything, I know that I am, at my essence, conscious awareness. I am awareness that has become aware of itself. But this is my absolute truth. It's mine alone. I can't prove this to anyone else. And being the skeptic that I am, I had to prove it to myself in the only way I knew how. I asked myself the question, does this work? When I started studying The Power of Now, my life was fairly normal. There were no serious life challenges. But I remembered this quote from the book. The best indicator of your level of consciousness is how you deal with life's challenges when they come. At first, the challenges were relatively innocuous, such as the neighborhood dogs that would not stop barking. After trying, to no avail, to get the owners to do something about the dogs, my wife Laura and I decided to stop having resistance to the barking. We got into the habit of listening to the barking without getting angry about it. Then we surprised ourselves one day when we realized that not only were the dogs not barking, we couldn't remember the last time they barked. Like stair steps, the size of the challenges grew with the level of my presence. And every time I applied what I'd learned, when I looked back at the outcome, I would find myself saying, yeah, it worked. Still, there was something in the book that I had not experienced, something esoteric and not at all logical. One night I was at a party in downtown Los Angeles. Many of my friends were there and the small venue was crowded and loud. I decided to step outside for some air. I looked up into the night sky and felt the cool air on my skin. I closed my eyes. And then I felt something in my body. A wave of energy started in my belly and then rose up to my head. My eyes welled with tears. I felt joy. I was happy, but confused as well. Where did this come from? What was I thinking about? And I realized that I wasn't thinking about anything. I wasn't thinking. I had experienced what Tolle calls the joy of being. This experience, which in the Zen Buddhist tradition is called Satori or Kensho, is a moment of intense felt oneness with being. It arises when there's a discontinuity in the mental stream, a gap of no mind. I had experienced this before. In fact, we all do. We feel it when we jump out of an airplane, ride a roller coaster, or are presented with a breathtaking vista. Any activity which takes us, if only for a moment, beyond thought. However, this time was different. For the first time, I experienced it clearly, without the cloud of thought or the distraction of activity obscuring it. I felt the joy of my own being. It was my first awakening. Not long after that, though, my ability to have no resistance to what was sorely tested. In 2015, Laura and I went to run an errand on our motorbike. I was driving and Laura was riding passenger. We were only 2 minutes away from our home when we were involved in an accident in which Laura was killed. I suffered a badly broken leg. One of the greatest things about our relationship was that Laura also followed the teachings of the Power of Now and practiced them in her everyday life. During the time that we were together, I could see her presence growing day by day. But now she was gone. As my leg healed, I spent many hours in the backyard of my friend's house. She had graciously offered a place for me to stay and help me in my recovery. I would sit and look at the large old tree which dominated the yard. I would listen to the wind as it passed through the leaves and to the sound of the cars passing by on the nearby freeway. I tried to figure out what happened and why it happened. The details of the accident are still to this day not 100% clear to me. Eventually, it was determined that even though I was driving, I was not at fault for the accident. After many weeks of meditation, a simple, concise statement came to me explaining why my loving wife had died. There was an accident. Not long after that question came, another question arose. What's next? Again, I waited in stillness for an answer. I knew that I would eventually have to leave my friend's house and find a place on my own. I could continue the path that I was on before the accident, pursuing acting and photography. But when I asked myself the question, what do you want to do? The answer that arose was intriguing. I want to travel and see other parts of the world. Fortunately, thanks to the generosity of family and friends, Social Security, and a small pension, this was actually doable. I planned a 6-month trip to Southeast Asia. I had intended to find an inexpensive place in Phuket, Thailand to use as a base of operations, then travel to as many countries as I could or wanted to. I never intended to spend a year in Thailand, much less nearly 5 now. There are tons of videos about living in Phuket, including several of my own, so I won't go into my reasons for living here. Suffice it to say that I never would have imagined living in such a beautiful, peaceful place. Although my initial plan included lots of travel, as time passed, I relished just living here in Phuket. I took many pictures. At first, I took mostly pictures of things because I didn't know many people. I also made videos. Gradually, my group of friends here grew. I even got involved in community theater. Still, there was something lacking. Purpose. In A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle writes this about your life's purpose. Your life has an inner purpose and an outer purpose. Inner purpose concerns being and is primary. Outer purpose concerns doing and is secondary. Your outer purpose can change over time. It varies greatly from person to person. Finding and living in alignment with your inner purpose is the foundation for fulfilling your outer purpose. I had found my primary inner purpose. As for my outer purpose, I thought about the capabilities that I had, but more importantly, those in which I found joy. Acting, being on camera, writing, photography, videography. Also, after working for Apple for a couple of years as a Mac genius, I started a personal computing consultancy. So I knew how to do things like build websites and make podcasts. Sometime in 2017, the Burning Log came to be. It is but one of my outer purposes, as I still enjoy all of the activities I mentioned. However, the Burning Log is the one that keeps me in alignment with my inner purpose. It also presents a challenge. It is a constant reminder to stay aware of my ego. As for the name, the burning log, as you might expect, it comes from a quote from Eckhart Tolle. When a log that has only just started to burn is placed next to one that is burning fiercely, and after a while, they are separated again, the first log will be burning with much greater intensity. After all, it is the same fire. I'm Tony Edwards. Peace.